This is Matthew Kratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about a Bitcoin dev's Bitcoin getting stolen. The development software that we're talking about is, of course, Bitcoin Core, which is what all the full nodes run, and then you have the Bitcoin Core devs who work on this. The one we're going to be talking about in particular, I believe his name is pronounced Luke Dashjr Jr. It might be Dashjr. If someone knows, they can correct me in the comments below, and this entry says he's known as Luke Dashjr Jr. or Luke Jr. This is the developer whose Bitcoin appears to have been stolen over the last couple days. Here's the alert that he put out on Twitter. He says, my PGP key is compromised and at least many of my Bitcoin stolen. I have no idea how. Help, please. He gives an address, which we're going to look at, where the Bitcoin seems to be flowing to. After having been coin joined, he tries to reach out to the FBI, and then he says, never mind, it's basically all gone. If we scroll down here, we can see he gives a list of transaction IDs. And one interesting thing you can do as a practice is you can go to mempool.space. You can type in these transaction IDs or copy and paste them up here, click the search button, and it will take you to the various transactions. And so I've done that here. I'll link to them in the description notes below. And then what I have here is the final address these Bitcoin have arrived at, or at least the final address for now, which is listed right here. And the balance is almost 217 Bitcoin, which currently has a value of about 3.6 million. So it's a significant amount of money, and it is a significant loss. We're going to talk about what happened, but before we do that, if you could just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you're enjoying what you're hearing so far and you support my mission of Bitcoin education. So this may be related. People are speculating this loss of Bitcoin, this theft of Bitcoin may be related to a hack that happened. His server was accessed by an unknown person in November of 2022. So this may or may not be related to this. It's important to note that no one, as far as I know, based on what I've seen online, knows all of the details of what happened. But we can make some guesses. It appears to me that Luke was storing his private keys in encrypted form on his own server or other computer, or something else may have happened, which we'll see, which may be that he may have generated his private keys on an old machine that was still somehow connected to the internet and got infected with malware or backdoored software that was able to unencrypt his keys or view his keys that had already been unencrypted. Now, PGP, which he talks about in that tweet, stands for pretty good privacy. It's a cryptographic method of verifying software. It's also a way of encrypting and decrypting files. And I probably should make a video about this one of these days. It's still a really dumb idea to store your private keys online if this is what Luke was doing, even if they're in encrypted form, because encrypted things can be broken. It's just a question of time. Peter Todd, who I believe is another Bitcoin Core developer, has confirmed that this is real. It's not a Twitter hack. He talked to a mutual friend of Luke, and Peter Todd says that Luke was using Gen2 or Gen2 on his desktop and didn't bother to keep different activities separated. So this is where my theory of backdoored software is one of the many ways that this could happen. He may not have been targeted, or he may have been targeted because he is a Bitcoin dev. Luke makes it clear as well that at least some of these Bitcoin did not have recovery seeds associated with them, which are the 12 or 24 word recovery seeds. They may have just been naked private keys. He said seeds didn't exist back then. So this supports the theory that he may have generated some old keys on some of his private keys on an old machine, and then that machine came back to life or got plugged in accidentally, and his private keys were revealed. Now, it's important to note that there are different kinds of Bitcoin wallets, and we've been over this before, but I want to do it one more time for all the new viewers. Bitcoin hot wallets, with the emphasis on hot, they're called hot because these are wallets that are connected to the internet. They may be on your mobile phone, they may be on your laptop or desktop. These are much less secure than wallets that never touch the internet. Bitcoin cold wallets have never touched the internet, are not connected to the internet, and if they do ever connect to the internet, you can consider them potentially compromised. Cold wallets, an example of a cold wallet, the most common example would be hardware wallets, where you hold your Bitcoin in cold storage like a Trezor, a Blockstream Jade, or a Cold Card. Those are my favorite three brands. What happens is your private key is stored inside of this device, which is a small device you can hold in your hand. You plug it into the USB port, but your private keys still never go onto the computer itself. So your private key is stored inside. It's used to sign transactions, but it never touches the internet. The unsigned Bitcoin transaction is basically sent into the hardware wallet through your USB port or through a QR code. It gets signed, and then that signed Bitcoin transaction is sent back out and broadcast to the Bitcoin network. If you store your private keys encrypted on a server, a private server, or a public server, as Luke may or may not have been doing, that's basically a form of a hot wallet, and it's much less secure. It's really important to note, because this is going to get a lot of wrong news coverage. The Bitcoin protocol itself was not hacked. What happened is somehow someone got their hands on Luke's Bitcoin private keys, or his recovery seed. Recovery seed is just a human readable version of it, and they were able to move his Bitcoin and steal his Bitcoin as a result. So someone here in this tweet, Walton Puppet, said, asked if is anybody considering the possibility that this is due to a Bitcoin vulnerability and not just compromised PGP keys. And Luke responds, it's neither. If Bitcoin were vulnerable, it wouldn't just be me being affected. And I think that's correct. So I don't think you have to worry about your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin is safe if it's in cold storage, if it's on a hardware wallet. And again, actually, I should specify that Bitcoin is not actually stored on a hardware wallet. What is stored is your recovery seed and your private keys on the hardware wallet. Your Bitcoin ownership is just an entry on the global ledger that's shared by all the full nodes. So your Bitcoin is safe. Your Bitcoin private keys are safe in cold storage, unless you've also uploaded your private keys online. Again, as we said, the 12 or 24 word recovery seed, it's generated by your hardware wallet locally, and this is just a human readable representation of your Bitcoin private key, which is a really long string of characters that no one would be able to remember. So it's very, very important when you have cold storage, you don't want to accidentally turn it into hot storage by uploading your private keys or your recovery seed, somehow getting them online. So you never want to take a picture of it using your phone. Never say it out loud in case you have an Alexa listening or some other spy device in your home or in the coffee shop you're in. Never play around with your recovery seed or private keys in a public location at a McDonald's or a Starbucks. This is not the right place to generate them or to work with them. Obviously, there are video cameras on the wall as well. Never enter your recovery seed, your 12 words or 24 words, into a web form. There are a lot of people who've gotten fake spam emails from companies like Ledger whose email was hacked, and they'll send you a link. The scammers will. They'll send you a link. You click on it and ask you to reset your wallet by entering your 12 words. If you do that, your Bitcoin will immediately be swept from that address and it will be gone forever. And you can complain to the FBI, you can complain to the President of the United States, but nothing can be done about it. Also, never put your 12 or 24 word recovery seed in an email. Never store your private key or recovery seed online, even in encrypted form. And maybe this is what Luke was doing. Obviously, if you're a public Bitcoin dev, not an anonymous dev like Luke, or you're a public Bitcoiner like myself, we are much higher obvious targets for thieves. So if you're a non-public figure who owns Bitcoin, keep yourself safe, don't tell everyone about it, and you'll be at a much lower risk of attack. I think it's a really bad idea. It's great to love Bitcoin and show your love for it, but wearing a Bitcoin baseball cap or a Bitcoin t-shirt in public really gives attackers an idea of who they might go after if they want to kidnap and torture someone. It's just a bad idea to do that. Some people speculate that Luke's loss of Bitcoin was a quote-unquote boating accident where he pretends that it's lost, but it's not really lost. If this is in fact the case, everyone's going to be watching that address for a very long time. And if it moves, then and if it goes to anywhere that's associated with Luke, there may be problems. I don't think this is a boating accident. I think this is an actual loss of Bitcoin. But again, no one knows. We don't have a way of knowing. This could be a whole publicity stunt that basically tells people he doesn't have Bitcoin anymore, but he actually still controls the private keys. But we have no way of knowing, unfortunately. Is this a psyop by some other group that's been putting pressure on Luke to make Bitcoin look bad through this loss by having a Bitcoin dev lose his Bitcoin? It's obviously very embarrassing to the ecosystem. It just looks really bad. I think it's unlikely, but of course it is possible. The one thing I'm not looking forward to is seeing this in my comments section over the next year. These sort of comments like Bitcoin devs are so incompetent that they can't even custody their own Bitcoin, so buy my own token or shipcoin instead. You're going to end up hearing that sort of thing a lot from scammers like Richard Hart, for example. I imagine he'll take advantage of this, as he always does. Again, Luke is obviously a really smart guy, a really good developer. Even smart people sometimes do dumb things, and smart people tend to have a tendency to perhaps make things more complicated than they need to be, simply because they possess the technical expertise to pull this off. If I wanted to do something really technically competent or complicated, I would not be able to do it. And so there's no temptation. I just use multi-sig, I use simple hardware wallets, etc. But if you're pretty smart about these things, you can make it too complicated and then end up losing your Bitcoin. So I think this is a common thing that would happen. I think the worst take of all was Udi Wertheimer's take, which was this: you shouldn't manage your own keys. If even one of Bitcoin's OG developers messes this up, I don't really know how other people are expected to do it safely. I think this is very disingenuous of Udi. And as this tweet points out, this is the same Udi who was saying, don't use Celsius, use FTX instead, earn yield on your Bitcoin, and use my affiliate code. So he does not have a history of being able to be trusted. I would never trust anything that Udi says. And he's spinning this in the wrong sort of way, trying to drive people away from self-custody of their Bitcoin. And I think that's really, really bad advice. And he's doing self-interested advice, as always. So what's the summary? The summary is that Luke had his Bitcoin stolen, presumably because he was storing his private keys online or in some form of hot wallet, whether it was on an old laptop, whether it was on a private server or some other server. If your Bitcoin is in cold storage, you have nothing to worry about. We're not hearing about any cold storage hacks. Whatever actually happened, though, I do want to thank Luke for all of his years of service working on Bitcoin Core. He's made tremendous contributions. If you go look at his GitHub, he really has been one of the giants. So I wish him and his family the best. And I hope that he can recover from this both financially and professionally. I think it's important, as I said at the beginning of this video, to emphasize as well that none of us really knows what happened. It sounds like even Luke doesn't really know what happened. So before people offer a lot of advice or criticize Luke, I think it would be important to actually have the real story, which we don't have now. If you want to learn more about hot storage and cold storage, I will link to both of these videos in the description notes below. This is the best ways to store small and medium amounts of Bitcoin, talking about hot wallets and talking about single sig. And then this video, the best way to store large amounts of Bitcoin, talking about multi-sig, which is how I store my Bitcoin. It's really the gold standard for Bitcoin storage. I also wanted to wish Bitcoin happy birthday. There's the release of the white paper on October 31st on Halloween, which is considered one birthday, but it was January 3rd when Satoshi mined the Genesis block. So this is Genesis block today. It's also become known as Proof of Keys Day, where there's this encouragement to take your Bitcoin off the exchanges and hold your own private key. So I think it's ironic to be covering this on a day, this news story on a day like this, on Proof of Keys Day, but it's a reminder to keep those private keys and keep your recovery seeds offline and safe and private. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.